Hello. My name is Joseph Ansong. I'm in the Department of Mathematics at the University of Ghana in Legon. That's my email address on my website. So this is to welcome you to COSIN and then to also give you a brief introduction to myself so that you get to know a bit about myself, my education, my research area, and my interest. Okay, so I did my BSc in mathematics at the University of Cape Coast in Ghana. Then I moved to the Netherlands to do an MSc in engineering mathematics. Then I went on to do my PhD in applied mathematics at the University of Alberta in Canada. After my PhD, I moved to the US to do a postdoc at the University of Michigan, where I worked with Professor Brian Abick, who is the founder of COSIN. It's COSIN Summer School. So I did my postdoc with him for a couple of years. So this is Brian right there. If you haven't seen his picture, he's the organizer and the founder of this summer school. That is me. And then this is Paige. Paige is our Python guru. So she's part of the summer school. Anna was also part of the group. She's now also part of the summer school for this year. Okay, and then these are the nice fellas that I worked with in Michigan. Okay, so for my PhD, actually, I did most of my research was in the applied mathematics in fluid dynamics. So you can see me in the lab right here. Most of my research had area was in studying plumes and fountains and internal waves. Okay, so and the motivation for the plume and fountains was to understand things like how volcanic eruptions will spread in the stratosphere. When you inject a pollutant like a plume into the atmosphere with different atmospheric conditions, how it will behave, right? So that's the motivation for those studies. And then we did lab experiments to generate internal waves. So we set up a uniform fluid up here. Below here it is stratified. When you inject a plume into the uniform fluid and it hits the interface, you generate these waves. I actually have a movie of this in my talk on Introduction to Ocean Modeling. Okay, so you generate these waves, and the point was that if you know something about this plume here, which represents, let's say, a storm on the surface of the ocean, if you know anything about it, the energy of this, can you sort of predict how much of the energy of this goes into generating the waves? In this case, in the lab case, we found that's about 4%. So mostly my experiments and research for my PhD were in fluid dynamics and lab experiments. Then when I went on to do my postdoc with Brian, I started studying internal waves or internal tides on a global scale, that is using global ocean models. So that is where I first started studying that. So my recent research pursuits have been on global internal waves, and mostly I'm interested in comparing the characteristics, the energetics of these waves to satellite waves that you derive from satellite observations. Okay, so that's mostly, if you like, the main point of my research area at the moment. Now, in the internal waves have, once they are generated, they propagate away from their source and they go for thousands of kilometers. There is a lot of energy, okay, that goes with them. They cause the mixing of the ocean. So we are interested in them. There are interesting scientific questions that you can ask about them. For instance, how do they dissipate their energy? Well, this is from a model. How good are these internal waves when you compare them to real ones in the ocean? Okay, so these are interesting questions that we've been asking, and most of my research have been on these. So I'll just give you a brief summary of some of the questions that we try to answer. Okay, so for instance, how do they compare to observations, internal tides, internal waves from observations? So in this study, we use the HICOM model, and we showed that if you have a wave drag within your model, that sort of takes away some of the energy of the internal waves that you generate. then the results from the models are comparable to what you find in observations. We show that without a drag, the waves that you generate in the models are too energetic compared to observations. Another question was that how good are the fluxes? In other words, the energy and then the direction. And then in this paper, we show that, well, once again, if you have a drag in the model, you can find that the fluxes are doing well if you compare them to fluxes from observational measurements. Okay, so these are from in situ measurements. I think the blue ones and the red ones are from the HICOR model. And then finally, why do they dissipate their energy? So in this study, we show that there is a wave-wave interaction mechanism known as parametric subharmonic instability, or PSI. And that is one of the mechanisms by which the internal waves or internal tides lose their energy. But the amount of energy that is lost is very small. It's less than 10%. That's what we show in this paper here. And also, mostly they lose their energy along these so-called critical latitudes, these bands on the globe. Okay, so basically I'm interested in global internal tides and then how they compare to observations. So in this ongoing research, we want to compare the internal tides from different global models to observation. So this dashed line here is observation. And we want to see how the different global models are doing compared to internal tides that you derive from satellite altimetry. Okay, so this is an ongoing research that we are still pursuing. Okay, so basically that is what I've been doing now, and that is my background, my research areas. If you have any other questions, you can post them on Slack. Okay, thanks.